So my son and I were out adventuring the other day, and he suddenly said that he wanted to go to the Lego store. And I was a little bit surprised because neither of us had been to the Lego store for quite some time, and him perhaps even longer than I hadn't been. So off we went, and this was the Lego store in Milton Keynes. As it happens, that's where we were. And we browsed and we browsed and we browsed, and he couldn't see anything that he felt was affordable for what he was kind of looking for. And in the end, we settled on set number 10497. And just to sort of explain, he took real sort of umbrage with the fact that this says on its front cover here 18 years and up, because he was absolutely convinced that at his age he was able to build this, and he was absolutely right. He's more than able to build this. And so, of course, I had to explain to him that the only reason this says 18 years and up is because it anticipates old fuddy-duddies like me buying it for the sake of nostalgia. Because this set is very, very closely indeed based on a much, much older set, which was current in, it might even have been the late 70s. I think it was 79 it came out, which was essentially the same vessel with the same registry, LL928, but on a much smaller scale than they've done this modern version of it. But it was one of those early Lego space models that I had growing up, which sticks with me in my memory to this day. And what they've done here is very, very clever. The sloping piece that you can see here is not actually a 6x3 wedge as it was back in the day. It's just a flat sticker, and the whole thing has been angled in such a way that it gives the impression of looking like the original, but it isn't. It's done with straight pieces, not with the wedged sort of cockpits that they used to have, and the whole thing is on a somewhat different scale as well, as I've said. If you're interested in the scale, the completed model is about 55 centimeters long, and he says, getting his tape measure out, perhaps I should have done this earlier, it is again rather approximately 35 centimeters wide, and on its extended landing gear it is about 15 centimeters tall. So she's not small. She's very sturdy, but she's not small. And one of the interesting things I found is that I did a few of the instruction sets to help my son along. As with many modern models from Lego, she's actually got a very technic underpinning. You can't see it once it's completed, but in the guts are lots and lots of very clever technic bricks and connectors and so on to give it that sort of structural strength to allow it to be the size it is without it self-destructing every 2 seconds. So it's very cleverly designed for that. One of the other nice things about this is that as you build it, there are little comments in the manual about the fact that this piece hasn't been out for years in this colour, and that the astronauts that are included with it are exactly the same astronauts as were in the original set, albeit with slightly stronger chin straps. All these little sort of nods of the head back to the original version of this. So let me. It's actually worth looking around the box, because the box is rather nice, and my son actually did a very good job of preserving it, even though I hadn't asked him to. So you can see there that's the rear, and again that's a pretty much straight copy of the original ship, but it does have one slight difference in that it's got a very neat little ramp system. I'm not actually sure, thinking about it, I know how to deploy it. I've seen my son do it once, but I might have to fiddle a bit to show you that, because he was better at it than I was. But these back pictures really sort of do a really good job of sort of showing you exactly what it can do. So rather bizarrely, the guys can actually sit on the rockets, the wing-mounted rockets, and fly around on top of them. I haven't actually tried that, and I'm not sure I want to now because I might wreck the entire thing trying to get them off. But they would, I can see where they attach and they would detach. But I'm not gonna go for that. You can see there that there's a ramp that allows the buggy to come scooting out of it at speed, which is great. Little equipment storage hatches. This is quite an interesting little area here, because this on the original was just a printed brick. There are no decals here. These are all printed bricks. But in this version of it, that is actually a Nexo Knight's white shield inserted between two other bricks to give that arrow effect. I've no idea why they went for that, but obviously they wanted to do it, and they did. So it's also got this rather neat thing, as my son pointed out to me. It's got a nice sort of couch, and they've done it in such a way that you don't have to take the air tank off the astronauts to lie them down flat, which is very clever. So if they need to be sort of scanned in sick bay or whatever, that's where you would do it. So let me now show you the model itself. Incidentally, this was at the time when we picked it up. It was just shy of £90 British pounds in the Lego store. I have no idea if you can get it cheaper than that, but I actually think that in terms of the number of pieces, which I think was the 1,254 pieces. So I actually think it's probably, I haven't actually done any calculations, but my gut feeling tells me that's really good value. Probably because it's not a licensed set. This is a Lego set, fundamentally. It doesn't need to be licensed. So there she is. As you can see, 4 astronauts very happily in the front. 3 somewhat sturdy landing gear. I say they're somewhat sturdy. These pieces I haven't seen before. These sort of rounded, rectangular, smooth pieces. 4x4. But they don't, to my mind, I don't think my son's mind, because he was thinking about modifying them, they don't attach terribly convincingly onto the 2 landing struts. It's a nice idea, because they fold up back into the hole, which you can see here. Looks like it's just made out of plates. But as I say, you can sort of see little bits peeking out of the Technic. I assume these are the dishes here are intended to be sort of, landing thrusters for vertical thrust. It's a nice idea, and they do fold away, but you do have to be very careful when you're moving them. But as you can see, she's a long ship. There's a lot of ship there. She's quite heavy. I can hold her comfortably enough with one hand, but I think children probably have to be quite careful with her. You can see all the colours, apparently the original colours that were used, with one grey exception, I think, which isn't a modern grey. But they are basically, it's the same coloration that was used in the original set. So they have put a lot of thought and love into this one. So you can lift both cockpits up like that, and in the rear section here is the sort of that medical bay. And my son's also popped the robot in the back there, which you can see standing in the back. So you can bring him along on the adventures as well, no problem at all. Classic piece from, actually that's a slightly different piece from what I thought. As I say, I didn't make all of this, but I'm just looking at this this rocket thruster assembly here, the reaction control system thruster. That isn't the one that I remember from the 70s, the 80s at all. That's got slightly more detail on it, which is interesting. I didn't realise they'd actually changed that. Little container there to hold whatever you want, and they've modified the front as well, because this used to be a standard sort of 2-pronged sort of rung piece, but they've enhanced it because of the size difference here. And there's the nice LL928 logo, which they've put onto a slightly bigger piece. It's the manual mentions it. It's now in a 1x6 rather than a 1x4 brick. But as you can see, that classic Lego space logo on the front there is just a 2x4 flat smooth tile. It's no longer a 3x6 wedge, which is what I grew up with and used a lot of. You'll also notice that along the front here, we've got 1x2 sloped tiles to give it this sort of smooth edge all the way around, and that is actually accomplished using little hinge sort of 1x2 and 1x2 hinges just to get exactly the right angle to meet and pair up with the larger wedged wing pieces, which look more like the standard old school version of it. It's very cleverly done, and somebody must have used some very clever angling to get that just so. They also use a technique to sort of latch onto the main body of the ship, so there's no wobble on those at all. They are solid, despite the fact that they're actually sort of unhinged pieces. It's very cleverly done. So at the back here, you can see the main sort of aft thrusters there, but these guys split apart very nicely like this, as they did on the original version, which I remember very, very clearly. And you can see there that the rover is actually held in place by those two Technic pins there. Now, this is the point at which I'm not quite sure how I allow it to come out. So that comes down, and then there's a long, smooth piece here that comes out. That's right. Now I remember. So when this ramp drops down, the rover comes down with it, and its wheels then are able to go underneath those. So you don't have to move those. The rover will automatically zip out once you've done that. And then of course you can just roll it straight back up there, get it far enough back, and whilst you hold it in place, just lift it up horizontal and slot that back in, and you're back in business. So it's very cleverly done. There's even an airlock here. Look at that. Isn't that brilliant? I love the technique for that as well. I just laughed when I saw that they put that sort of level of detail in, because it means that if you were trying to sort of even animate it or whatever seriously, you could use that and use that as you wouldn't actually get a minifigure straight through it, I don't think, but if it was in 0G, they'd be able to move from place to place easily enough. And you've got a spanner here and a radio here. I think my son and I had a bit of a debate about whether or not the radio actually looks like a gun, but so that slots back up there like that, and then you just fold it all away again. So back in the day when I had this, for play value, that was just epic, because it was probably one of the first times that I'd ever had a Lego set where that sort of extra functionality was kind of built into it, just because they could. But it does make a fair bit of difference in terms of what you feel you're getting for your money, because it has real play value, which is great. And obviously, this is all using very modern techniques now. It's nowhere near as plate dependent as it was, but what they've done very cleverly is use the plates to cover the Technic underpinnings, so that you would never know basically that there was Technic underneath there to actually strengthen the whole thing. And yet they've managed to keep it very true to the original. So fair dues to them. They've done a sterling job doing that like this. And as I say, apart from maybe the landing gear, which I think could easily sort of disintegrate themselves on a fairly regular basis, it is nevertheless a very good solid set. It would be a bit tricky to show you. There's also some nice detailing on the computer terminals inside the ship as well. So they look quite old school, but they have new designs on them. So they are sort of more modern, and it has not one steering wheel but two steering wheels for guidance, which again the manual draws your attention to. But it's a really lovely callback to the original set, and there were a few of these. I think this is part of the Icon series that they're doing at the moment, which are just sort of harking back to earlier days of Lego. They're celebrating 90 years of Lego, which is a remarkable achievement. Fair dues to them. So so that is set number 10497, which is the modern Galaxy Explorer. God knows how much you would get for the original these days, but I'm sure the instructions are out there if you wanted to recreate it. And interestingly, the designer of this set has also released alternative models for it, which you can build from this set. Only you'd have to buy more of these sets to be able to do them simultaneously. But what they've very cleverly done is made it so you can make some of the other classic space-esque models from this one as well. So if you've got this one but you prefer to make a different set out of it, you could do. And I think the instructions for those are online if you want to go looking for them. So you could probably create these using pieces you already had, of course. So up to a point you could probably do it. But there will be some pieces which are unique to these sets, which obviously will be the ones that I guess become more valuable over time. But I hope you've enjoyed that little look at it, and it's given you an idea of the sort of the size and the scope of it. And I think really for the money, it's really good value, and you get a very impressive display model at the end of it. We haven't actually found anywhere to display it yet because it is quite large, but we'll have to cross that bridge slightly further down the road. So thanks for watching. Do like and subscribe to the channel, and cheers for now.